2020 has been the worst year in my career. 2020 has been the worst year in my career because I was cursed for the sins that I've committed in 2019. I was cursed with the curse of Aries. Well, you see, now I think I've paid enough for my sins. So now I think it's time that I use that curse and I make other people feel it.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 1 of Razor Talk with Anthony Aries. And before we get into today's topic for episode 1 of Razor Talk, which is the lore of the curse of Aries, I want to get a couple things out of the way. First of all, no more shooting with the Saint, obviously, as we've seen on FBW TV prime time. I am no longer the Saint of backyard wrestling. I am now the man with a razor rage. So we're not doing shooting with the Saint no more. We are doing Razor Talk. Now this whole new series is gonna kind of play a different role. It's gonna be different than shooting with the Saint. I'm not really gonna do much interviews. I'm gonna do more episodes of telling stories from the history of FBW and myself. So if you guys like this podcast series that I'm going to be starting, definitely hit that like button and subscribe to the Anthony Aries channel. And real quick, if you guys are watching this on YouTube, I appreciate it. But if you're listening to this on SportsWire Radio, yes, we are sponsored by SportsWire Radio. So now you can hear this on YouTube on SportsWire Radio. I appreciate all of you guys listening on there, and shout out to Mr. Tom Bryce. But let's get on to today's Razor Talk episode. It is all about the curse of Aries. Now, the curse of Aries is something I play into a lot. You know, my Instagram handle is at Curse of Aries, and I have a submission hold named after the Curse of Aries, and the Curse of Aries was supposed to be leaned into more, and I've tried to lean into it, but I feel like there's still some confusion and lack of knowledge about what the Curse of Aries is or what it's about. So why not we talk about the Curse of Aries, something that is very huge in my branding. Why not we talk about it and deep dive into the lore of the Curse of Aries for the first episode of this new Razor Talk podcast. So if we're going to talk about the Curse of Aries, we have to go way back to basically the Evil Heart, because this is where the Curse of Aries starts to develop. So in 2019, I was the Evil Heart. In 2019, I had my first ever heel run, because prior to 2019, when I officially turned, actually, at WrestleBash 4 in December of 2018, but 2019 was when I really became a heel. Before 2019, when I really had an official heel run, I was face. From 2012, when I started FBW, all the way until December 2018 at WrestleBash 4, when I officially turned. So I was a face for like the majority of my career. And I've tried to turn heel a couple times before 2018 when I turned at WrestleBash 4, but just plans kept on falling out. I remember in 2016 I had a idea for a heel run. I was going to be the Corrupted File ALM. But Scott Viking left. We had issues with the school bullying us, so like people weren't joining, people were leaving, and being childs and young teenagers, not having our own cars, having to rely on parents for shit. We would miss some shows, so plans fell through, so I just stuck with it, and I was face for the longest time. Um, but at WrestleBash 4, um, Chris Dynamite was wrapping up his first heel run. He Chris Dynamite turned in 2017, and a little bit before WrestleBash 4, Chris Dynamite turned back face. So Chris Dynamite had his first heel run, and the only guy left in FBW leading up to WrestleBash 4 that never turned heel was me. Um, so having Chris Dynamite at the time back on the face list, I knew it was my time. It was my time to turn heel, and I wanted to do something big because after WrestleBash 4, we were planning our first weekly run where we did weekly shows. In 2019, we had the FBW Showdown series where every Saturday we would upload a Showdown TV event. And in between showdowns, we would have our monthly special live event. So I want to do something big for that. So just all of the pieces were falling into place for me to become the Evil Heart. And at the time, I was a really big fan of what Tommaso Ciampa was doing on NXT. He was the Blackheart. So I was like, man, let me take inspiration, because throughout my whole career, I always took inspiration through, my idols, through guys that I looked up to in WWE. WWE being my favorite wrestling federation, and I mean, no shocker there. So, obviously, I wasn't gonna just steal the Black Heart. So I just spun evil, with the Black Heart, and I came up with the Evil Heart, and I became a very evil dude. Throughout my heel run, what really, put a stamp on the whole, heel turn stuff was the stuff I did with Chris. In the early half of 2019, I had a very personal, heated feud with Chris Dynamite, and we blurred the lines through, kayfabe and real life. I know Chris Dynamite, no secret, was going through some personal stuff, with his relationship, and just Chris Dynamite at the time was kind of spiraling out of control. I know, like, he got into a fight at school and had to deal with court and anger management, and just all that bullshit. Which, that's no secret. He's talked about it. You know, in his doc that's on the FBW channel, the Chris Dynamite story, Underdog to Top Dog. Go check that out. But you know, I've said some really, bad things. We've had heated brawls, and I really think that really put me up on, a higher level, than I ever was as just the white meat cut, baby face. But the Evil Heart lasted um a good solid couple months until Chris Dynamite got released from FBW. Just all of his personal problems were just coming to a boiling point. So we needed to take a break from our friendship and his part of being in FBW. And obviously, me and Chris Dynamite were the two top dogs of FBW. Me and him literally built the kingdom of FBW together in December of 2012, and it's always been me and him. We were the two, guys who really cared and tried, doing everything with FBW together. So obviously, when Chris Dynamite left in 2019, that left a very big hole in FBW. So I had to turn back face. And then Chris Dynamite eventually made his return later in the year in 2019, and I turned back heel because I never wanted to turn back face after I got going as Evil Heart. I wanted to get a really good run as the Evil Heart, but shit happens, and regardless of what I personally want, I have to think of the greater good of FBW, and obviously, you know, we needed a top baby face that can hold down the main event scene, and obviously at the time, it really the only option was me. My fiance Ruby, she was just getting back into the fold of things after um she had a little beginning in 2018, but never really, got going because of some health issues with ovarian cysts and stuff that she developed after she debuted in 2018. Jared Payne, he lacked the promo skills to be like that top face. Eric Danger was not really in the fold of things at the time. And Priscilla Clare, she was still training and had no ability to be the a top star. So really, I had to turn back face. But when Chris Dynamite got back into the fold of things, and when everything settled down, the personal storm and all that bullshit, I turned back face, and I just picked off where we left off when I was the Evil Heart in the beginning. And I think besides the Messiah slash Saint of Backyard Wrestling, I think the Evil Heart was one of my best gimmicks. If I can be honest, I really, I really was probably one of the best heels, if not the best heels that FBW has ever seen. I mean, my promos, you can go back to the Showdown series in early 2019, and you can watch those promos that you know I did, and those were honestly some of the best promos that I've ever done. And I remember, like, I think it was, oh man, yeah, no, it was Showdown 1. It was Showdown 1 when I did my first ever heel promo. I remember Chris Dynamite was backstage, and he was just prepping for his promo because me and him both had promos on Showdown 1, and I did mine first. And I remember he even told me, like, he got chills, like, listening to my promo, because at that time I never did a heel promo. Like, I didn't do no first heel backstage promo. Like, after my heel turn at WrestleBash 4 leading up into Showdown 1, I didn't do no heel promos. um, I saved my first heel promo for the first Showdown, and I didn't practice nothing really. I didn't send practice promos to the group. Like, Chris Dynamite really didn't know what to expect, and he got chills from that promo. Like, obviously, like some of the stuff that I said about Chris Dynamite's, like, personal issues and personal life, like, obviously, like, I ran that stuff through Chris Dynamite. Like, I would never just shoot or work a shoot like that without going. Because I have respect for my guys, and Chris Dynamite. That man is my brother, and I love him to death. So, like, even though he was spiraling out of control at the time, I still ran shit through him. And I was like, look, if you really don't feel comfortable, like, it's just at the time, like, I wanted to be very controversial and, like, get people talking, because, everybody thought, like, at the time, like, ALM, he was the guy who was never going to turn heel. Um, but yeah, so, I did some very dastardly things, and I became a real piece of shit, honestly. And I really showed what a heel can be in backyard wrestling and in FBW. Um, but then going into 2020, and having, like, at that point, like, I was like Evil Heart for like a year, and, like, I even joined AAW, and AAW, the group, and, like, spin-off brand of FBW. That was like the anti-FBW brand, AAW, Assassin Appreciation Wrestling, then later became Absolute Anarchy Wrestling, I'm pretty sure. Man, how the fuck do I forget that? I'm pretty sure it was Absolute Anarchy Wrestling, led by Eric Danger, and that was like the anti FBW, anti ALM, Anthony Aries like group. So like I even joined that. So like becoming the Evil Heart, like I really went against like what I was when I was like the white meat cut like babyface ALM, in the early days of FBW. So like I was doing all these things. I joined AAW. I was verbally destroying people on the microphone, and I was doing all of these things, and it just kind of was running its course, because like the MJF situation, like MJF started to get stale before like he did his little face turn and stuff because like he was just doing the same promo, like he was just doing the same promos over and over again, doing the same stuff. So like I kind of felt the same way at the time. Like the Evil Heart was it. The Evil Heart did what it could, all that it could because, I, took Chris Dynamite to the limits and, I got Chris Dynamite hella over as a babyface like shit. 2019, early 2020, like Chris Dynamite was at his hottest that he's ever been. Like shit, people were fucking, Chris Dynamite was getting the most views on the channel. He was getting the most fan interaction. So like I did my job as the top heel. I got Chris Dynamite over. I joined AAW. I verbally destroyed people. I injured, people. I did all these things. So like, what do you call it? The Evil Heart was running its course, and I knew it was time to change. Um, so going into the last event that I was going to be labeled as the Evil Heart, it was FBW Unforgiven 2020. And originally, the match for that show was going to be me versus Chris Dynamite versus Jared Payne, triple threat match for the undisputed title. I ended up developing a major kidney stone that actually needed surgery to remove, and I was going to be out of action for that whole show and whole month and stuff. So, um, leading up into that event, I kind of knew, and I was kind of like developing the feeling of I need a new gimmick and I need a new name, and like the feeling of that was like I've always had like the feeling of that because I never really liked the name ALM. It's just in the beginning of FBW when I first created FBW, like in December 2012, my first name for December 2012, the 2013 sporadic events for 2014, my name was Razor Rage, and obviously, like, fine, it was a whatever calling myself that in the early days of FBW because we were just doing it in the beginning for home video just to show friends, family. So and the only reason why I named myself Razor Rage in the beginning was because that's what I used to name my guys on like SmackDown versus Raw games, and I don't quite remember how or why or whatever. I don't know how I created the name Razor Rage and named my guys that on SmackDown versus Raw, but I took it from the games and I brought it to real life in the early days of FPW. But once we started to go online, I just knew like I was an 11-year-old white, skinny, fucking bear, not even 100-pound kid. Razor Rage does not fit that image. And I just couldn't think of a name. So I took inspiration from, my favorite backyard wrestler of all time, MOD, the Master of Disaster. And I kind of just spun my initials into ALM and I just grew to deal with it. But um, I knew at the time going into Unforgiven 2020, the things were getting stale with me and my character, and like I just knew the evil heart what was on its way out, and I really had to think of what I can do to like reinvent myself and get myself back into the limelight of being, you know, being something better, greater, and something that fans can get behind. And ultimately, I created Anthony Aries. everybody at the time in FBW was kind of just using their real names, and I don't know, like I couldn't look at myself and think of a name to call myself, because I mean, shit, all my life I've been called some version of Anthony, whether it was Anthony, Tony, Antonio. So like, I couldn't just look at myself and be like, man, I think I can go by Michael. Like, I don't know, I just don't feel like I look like a Michael or a Jason or a fucking, whatever, So I was like, okay, I'll just do Anthony, because that's my real name. And I was like, man, what can go after that? And ultimately, I used my daughter's zodiac time, because around the time that I got my surgery to remove that kidney stone, and I was planning on coming back, a new me, a better me, an improved me, whatever cliche statement you want to put after that. My daughter was born just before I had to get my surgery, and I had to take off some time from competing in FBW. So I used her zodiac sign and created the name Anthony Aries, and my fiance Ruby actually helped me design the Anthony Aries logo, and I just digitalized it. Jesus Christ. Um, so yeah, so then I came back just me, Anthony Aries. And I'm not gonna lie, I know that my first match that I was actually Anthony Aries was FBW Karma 2020. And I won the King of the Yard title, which was a new title. I know Jared Payne was the first champ, defended it, but Jared Payne, um, he no showed and just kind of went ghost after he went like ballistic. Okay, actually that's an overstatement. He just kind of just started shooting on Chris for real during the 2 out of 3 falls showdown 2020 title match that Chris Dynamite and himself had, and he just kind of went ghost after that. After we were like, "Yo, what the fuck? Like, chill out." So I won the King of the Earth title in my first match as Anthony Aries. But then, if we kind of look at where Anthony Aries went as a character and in his booking, he kind of had a shit fucking run. And I think like totaled up, I think I only won like 2 matches in like the entire year of 2020. If I yeah, literally the 2 matches that I won that year was the match that I won the King of the Yard title in, and then I defeated Ethan Hawks in a King of the Yard title ladder match, which that's actually where this photo of myself coming out with the King of the Yard title is from. And then every single match that I had that year, I lost. And I had a pretty shit year. Like, my momentum, even though I became this new and improved, you know, better version of myself in Anthony Aries, like, I had a shit run. And I honestly, it wasn't like on purpose. Like, it's kind of something that I realized, like, looking back, in hindsight, I was like, man, I really had a shit run. And at the time, I was really digging what Finn Balor was doing, because during that time, he just went back to NXT and was doing the whole Prince gimmick, and I loved the Prince gimmick. Finn Balor is definitely like in my top 3 favorite wrestlers of all time right now, and I wanted to kind of be like him. I kind of wanted to be this like tweener, like anti-hero, good guy, bad guy, like whenever need be, and just kind of like help, you know, re, give myself some new life. Cause, over the history of FBW, I've kind of been selfless, um, not selfish. I've definitely put others over me, almost to the point where it honestly, looking back in hindsight, kind of hurt me a lot. And I don't know if that has anything. It probably does. Honestly, has to do with the whole backlash that I get time to time of, oh, you're only champ, or you're only doing this in this story because you're owner. You're just booking yourself, and I kind of wanted to avoid that a lot. That's why we had the whole storyline where I sold FBW to Matt, um, and all that stuff. Because throughout my whole FBW career, like, I never wanted to be labeled as, oh, you just got this or you did that because you were owner. I honestly wanted to earn everything. And I know, like, I always and always will book the FBW shows, but I think I am one of the most selfless, like, bookers in backyard wrestling. Like, hell, like, example, like 2020, I only won 2 matches out of like 12 shows, you know? And then, you know, like, my last couple FBW title reigns weren't all so crazy. Like, my last FBW title reign was a transitional title reign to drop it to Chris, and then, and I've had a lot of transitional reigns, like, in my career, um, but going into 2021, like, Chris Dynamite had his killer run. Like, when Chris Dynamite, came back in late 2019, and I was, like, able to give him, like, a full on, like, top star, top dog run. He had a run of a lifetime, being FBW undisputed champ during that run. And, I can't just solely rely on Chris Dynamite, Um he just lost the title. He's doing his thing. Ethan Hawks at the time wasn't ready. We had Dante Kruger at the time. He was Jay Swervo. He definitely wasn't ready either because he was just getting started. So, and then, Ruby, I wanted to put, Ruby was the champ at the time, but she had to vacate the title, and she had to take a while away because she was pregnant with our second kid, my son. So I I felt like it was maybe time that I can get back into the limelight, but I knew that after my, like, I wouldn't say, like, failed, but my, like, lackluster, like, my accidental lackluster Anthony Aries debut and, emergence, I had to kind of, you know, rebuild myself. And I think how I was going to rebuild myself was kind of turn myself into this, like, cold-hearted, just, I'm going to hurt people and take back what I think I'm owed. Um so I developed the Curse of Aries, and to explain, so I had to explain storyline wise and to my audience, how am I going to go from being this piece of shit, evil heart dude who then became this new and improved Anthony Aries, good guy. I'm sorry for all the evil shit that I've done. How do I go from that? And then, when I come back, I have a shit run. I have no credibility. How am I going to get my low credibility self back up into the FBW undisputed title picture? And ultimately, I thought of the Curse of Aries. Um, you know, I called it the Curse of Aries basically because I felt like I was cursed. I felt like I was cursed for everything that I've done as the Evil Heart. Because obviously, as the Evil Heart, I did some very despicable things to, a man who I called my brother, a woman I call my fiance, a man who I, called a tag team partner in Jared Payne. I, went outside of the FBW bubble and I targeted um, a down to earth man in Josh Allen. I try to hinder the potential of a bright upstart in Laverius Walker. So I did all these despicable things, and then I was just gonna come back as Anthony Aries, like, oh yeah, hey guys, I'm new and improved. I'm here to carry the torch. Like, no, like everybody has to pay for their sins, right? So when I came back as Anthony Aries and I lost all these matches and I really came back as Anthony Aries and built no credibility, I explained that by saying I was cursed. I was cursed by Aries because I tried changing my name, but what did that bring me? Nothing. It brought me punishment for the sins that I've committed as the evil heart. So I developed the curse of Aries, but going into 2021, I was slated to be in a triple threat ladder match against Jay Swervo, now known as Dante Kruger in the later days of FBW, and Chris Dynamite. And going into that event, I felt that, even though I did all these despicable things, I came back as Anthony Aries. I had a poor reintroduction, and I paid for my sins. I thought that I paid for my sins um, after going through all that, horrible reintroduction of being Anthony Aries. I was Anthony Aries, and then, you know, I lost to Jay Swervo, I lost the King of the Yard title, and then, I lost the Glory Rumble. Chris Dynamite broke my wrist. I suffered my first loss at Wrestle Bash 5. I lost the triple threat match. So I was going on a horrible run, and I felt going into Genesis 2021, that I paid for my sins, and now it's time to grow officially and really get back on track. So I thought, let me use this Curse of Aries thing, and how about the Curse of Aries, what I was cursed with when I first became Anthony Aries, and like I, lost the Glory Rumble, broke my wrist, suffered my first WrestleBash loss, lost the King of the Yard title to a newcomer in Jay Swervo. Let me take the curse that I was cursed with and use it to my advantage, and let me hurt people with it. And then ultimately, I ended up using the Curse of Aries branding to name my submission hold that I created and was using from time to time. It's the Curse of Aries lock, the little leg lock that I use time to time, and I've won matches with. And that's how I, got it into my arsenal. I named my submission hold after it. Which I think it was a good idea to name a submission hold the Curse of Aries, just because like you're cursed, like you're suffering, and you suffer the most when you're in a submission rather than being hit with the move. So I named the submission hold the Curse of Aries, and yeah. So really, the Curse of Aries was just the explanation of why I had a poor run when I first became Anthony Aries, and that was because I was cursed and I was being punished for my sins that I committed when I was the Evil Heart ALM. And then after I felt that I paid enough for my sins, I took the Curse of Aries and I was going to make people feel it and use it to my advantage to hurt people, to reclaim my spot. And throughout the years after that, I mean, I thought I explained it pretty well. Like, I did, I did some promos on it. I got it over on commentary. And then, I mean, that first event, Genesis 2021, that I was officially like going into, and with the Curse of Aries, I won the FBW Undisputed title for the fourth time. I believe it was the fourth time. Yeah, it was the fourth time. And I mean, I had a pretty, solid run when I won the FBW Undisputed title when I first, mentioned the Curse of Aries. Because, like, the whole time I was, quote unquote, being punished for my sins as the Evil Heart, never once through that whole, punishment, quote unquote, did I ever mention the Curse of Aries on commentary in promos. The Curse of Aries was only mentioned after the fact, going into Genesis, when I knew I was going to be undisputed champ again, and I had to build my credibility and like explain how I'm going from low credibility to being the next FBW undisputed champ. So that was like the first time that I mentioned the Curse of Aries, and it which it worked out because it made sense. I was Evil Heart, did all these despicable things, and then I'm just gonna come back, say, hey, I'm new and improved, and act like nothing happened. So like looking back on it and then molding the Curse of Aries story, it all made sense and it all worked out. And I mean, when I won the undisputed title at Genesis 2021, after I developed the whole Curse of Aries branding and story, that was my last like decent FBW title reign. Because after I dropped the FBW title at WrestleBash 6, during that whole Curse of Aries, storyline, the next time I won that undisputed title was WrestleBash 7, and I only won that title to drop it immediately at the Backyard Wrestling Nexus Clash of the Yards taping to Chris Dynamite. So the Curse of Aries brought me my last FBW title reign that wasn't just a transitional. Because like during that time, what do you call it? I won it in the triple threat ladder match. I then defended it against Chris Dynamite in a semi buried alive match. We'll talk about that on another episode. Um, I defended it against Ethan Hawks. I defended it in a 30-minute Iron Man match with Chris Dynamite. So I had all these good matches, good storylines going into it. But yeah, so that's the whole story of the Curse of Aries. It was my punishment for my sins, and then I grabbed a hold of it, and I was gonna make people feel it and use it to my advantage to, hurt people. And in the little video that I played in the beginning of the episode, I explained it in there too. But yeah, so the Curse of Aries, that's my little branding. That's what I will always use to hurt people. Because now the Curse of Aries is now the curse that I put upon people and I use to hurt people. Because when you step in the ring, you feel the Curse of Aries. Because I'm going to hurt you when you step in the ring, the yard, the trampoline, wherever, the backyard wrestling environment. Um, and the Curse of Aries stuck. I mean, shit. The first time I mentioned the Curse of Aries, I don't quite remember when that video was aired. I think it was December of 2020, after Endgames 2020, I believe. I believe so. Yeah, I think the first time mentioned and explained and talked about the Curse of Aries was in a December 2020 promo before Genesis in January 2021. It could have been January, like, or January 2021 before Genesis. I'm not too sure. Um, but around that winter time, is when and I mean, shit, like that was 2020, 2021, and now it's 2024. So 3 to 4 years it's been with the whole Curse of Aries branding. But yeah, but that's the whole story and explanation, like deep dive into the lore of the Curse of Aries. So if you guys like this video, definitely hit that like button, because like these episodes and podcasts that I'm thinking of doing once or twice a month that will air on this Anthony Aries channel and Sports Wire Radio. Shout out to Tom Bryce. These are going to be how these episodes are going to be kind of structured. Mostly solo deep dives, but I am working on getting guests for certain episodes, to help deep dive and discuss stories and situations with me. So definitely stick around. Definitely subscribe, Stay tuned on the SportsWire Radio app, and I will see you guys in the next episode. Thank you guys for listening to the whole deep dive and discussion of the Curse of Aries. And don't let the Curse of Aries hurt you if you decide to step in the ring with Anthony Aries, because now the Curse of Aries is backed up with a razor range. But anyway, guys, thank you for watching this episode of Razor Talk with Anthony Aries.